Growing up in Washington State, not far from the dense forests of the Puget Lowland, I was part of a tight-knit group of friends who shared a love for exploration and the outdoors. We spent countless hours hiking trails and immersing ourselves in the beauty of the forest. It was our passion, our escape. That is, until one fateful day, an experience changed everything, leaving me with a fear that still lingers, keeping me far from those woods. On this particular summer day, like many others, the four of us decided to delve into the natural wonders of the forest closest to our homes. We were seasoned in these woods, or so we thought, having traversed them countless times without incident. The sun was high, casting a golden hue through the canopy as we followed the familiar hiking trail. However, as we ventured deeper, a sense of unease crept over me, a feeling that we were being watched. Dismissing it as nerves, I pressed on, eager to enjoy our usual trek. But fate had other plans. Just as we had become accustomed to the tranquil sounds of nature, a deafening bang shattered the peacefulness, echoing through the trees ahead. Approaching the source, we found a massive tree lying across our path. What struck us as odd was the manner of its fall. It wasn't a clean cut, as if felled by a saw, but rather looked as though it had been forcefully knocked over. Puzzled but undeterred, we continued, until another bang, this time to our right, sent shivers down our spines. Turning to investigate, we were met with a chilling sight, a tall, hairy figure peering at us from behind a nearby tree, its gaze fixed upon our group. It stood too tall to be a bear, and its movements were undeniably human-like. Panic set in as we exchanged terrified glances, wordlessly agreeing to flee. As we ran, the forest seemed to come alive around us, with more trees falling behind us, and an eerie, unidentifiable sound piercing the air. Finally, reaching safety, gasping for air and hearts pounding, we vowed never to return to those woods. Though we rarely speak of that harrowing day, its memory lingers, a reminder of the unknown terrors that lurk in the depths of the forest. It's a memory we'd rather suppress, a chapter of our lives best left unopened. Since that day, none of us has dared to set foot in those woods again, nor do we ever plan to. About a year ago, I lived in the Upper Peninsula of Michigan, near the Michigan-Wisconsin border, so this memory is still vivid in my mind. It was a typical evening around 9 o'clock when I took my two dogs out to the backyard. The lack of a fence meant the woods surrounded my house, adding a sense of isolation to the setting. As we ventured into the yard, one of my dogs suddenly began barking uncontrollably, alerting me to something amiss. With a flashlight in hand, a precaution I always took when stepping outside at night with my dogs, I scanned the tree line where the woods started, half expecting to see deer, which were common in the area. However, what I saw next chilled me to the core. Two piercing, glowing red eyes stared back at me from the darkness, unnervingly high off the ground, at least 7 feet up, if not taller. The figure seemed almost human-like, with a distinct outline of arms and shoulders. Panic surged through me as I hurried to get my dogs back inside, my gaze fixed on the mysterious figure. It didn't move aggressively. Instead, it calmly turned and walked back into the woods, disappearing from view. Once safely inside, I secured every window and blind, adamant about never letting my dogs out in the backyard at night again. However, the unsettling events were far from over. In the following weeks, strange occurrences plagued me. My dog's toys were found near the woods, some with large chunks bitten off, while others were discovered placed on high tree branches, impossible for a human to reach without climbing. Nighttime brought with it eerie sounds of grunting and snorting from outside, further fueling my fear. The memory of those glowing red eyes and the unnaturally tall figure still sends shivers down my spine. I moved from that house the very next summer, unable to shake the feeling of dread that lingered. Even now, the experience continues to haunt me, a chilling reminder of the unknown lurking in the darkness. When I was about 10 years old, I embarked on a field trip with my 4th grade class to a summer camp. It seemed like a typical outing at first, with activities like rafting, unappetizing meals in the mess hall, hiking, and campfires. One of my friends even pulled a classic movie move by bringing dirty magazines from home. Our plan was to stay for 4 days, but my adventure abruptly ended after just 2. Late one night, I stayed up to complete trash duty and clean the mess hall. As I finished picking up the final granola bar wrapper, I headed to the showers to freshen up before bed. Halfway through my shower, I heard a loud shuffling noise outside. I paused, listening intently, but the noise ceased. I assumed it was just my friends playing a prank, as they often did, and stepped out of the showers. To paint a picture, the showers in the boys' cabins were quite a distance away with no lighting available. Most of the class showered before dark and in groups to avoid getting lost. For someone like me, alone in the dark woods, it was incredibly frightening. To add to the dread, my flashlight was back at the cabin. I had to navigate my way back with a feeble lantern that barely illuminated the path ahead. I grabbed the lantern and began my walk back to the cabins. Suddenly, about halfway there, I heard an unearthly loud snarl directly in front of me. Panicked, I dropped the lantern and sprinted in the opposite direction of the sound. I couldn't see anything, and in my haste, I stumbled over something. I tried to inspect what I had fallen on, but in the darkness, all I could discern was that it was squishy and wet. Then, I heard the snarl again, this time from behind me, and I bolted towards the cabins. I was met with 3 flashlights and concerned expressions. It turned out that the other campers had also heard the loud snarls, prompting the counselors to investigate, leading them to me. Covered in blood from head to toe, I was brought back to the cabins and bombarded with questions about what I had encountered. I was so distraught that I could barely speak. The next day, I contacted my parents and went home. There was no way I was going to stay there after what I had experienced. When one of my close classmates returned from the field trip, I asked him what happened after I left, and his response sent shivers down my spine. He recounted that after I had departed, the snarling noises at night became louder and closer to the cabins, terrifying everyone. As for the mysterious mound I had fallen on, the counselors discovered a deer on the trail I had taken. Its head had been ripped off, and its entrails were found in a separate pile next to the carcass. Even now, all these years later, I still don't know what lurked in the woods that night. It remains the most frightening experience of my life. This chilling experience took place in Northern Virginia, approximately 60 miles east of Washington, D.C., during a Boy Scout camping trip. Our group consisted of 30 individuals, and we were staying in a small cabin with windows on both the front and back, as well as doors at each end. The area was furnished with wooden tables, and the cabin with the bathroom for adults was located about 1/8 of a mile away down a gravel road, shrouded in darkness. Naturally, we adhered to the buddy system, a standard practice in scouting. It was around midnight, and the atmosphere was ripe with the telling of spooky stories, a typical camping tradition. I needed to use the bathroom and asked my friend to accompany me. He agreed, and we armed ourselves with knives for safety, aware of the presence of bears in the woods. After completing our task, we began our journey back. This is when things took a terrifying turn. A sense of primal fear washed over me, and a glance at my friend revealed that he felt it too. We quickened our pace, unfolding our pocket knives. I glanced behind us and saw it. A creature resembling a cat, but towering at about 6 feet tall, standing on its hind legs and hunched over. Panic seized me, and I broke into a run. My friend, catching sight of the creature as well, joined me in a sprint back to the cabin. The creature emitted a chilling, moaning, howling sound somewhere between the two and followed us at a slow pace. We pounded on the cabin door, and the others let us in. Upon recounting our experience, they believed us. We promptly locked the front door and assessed the back, which had no lock. We barricaded it with a table and had another boy stand guard with his knife. Drawing the blinds on all windows except for one that lacked them, we sat inside with all the lights blazing. Then, we noticed eyes outside the unblinded window. Fear gripped us all as the creature approached the back door, its movements audible as it bumped against it, perhaps attempting to gain entry. Eventually, it departed, but we remained on edge, expecting the worst throughout the night. Sleep eluded us all. When the adults arrived to wake us in the morning, we recounted the events of the night. However, they dismissed our story, chalking it up to imagination. Despite their disbelief, we knew what we had seen was real. When I was around 14, I ventured into the woods for a squirrel hunting trip in the crisp October air. The day held a chill, but I was undeterred, knowing this area had been fruitful in the past. Having already secured a couple of squirrels, my attention was fixed on two more, darting about the branches above, awaiting the perfect moment for a clean shot. Without warning, the scene shifted dramatically. In a blink, all the squirrels, numbering around 6 or 7, vanished. Their alarm barks echoed, then silence engulfed the woods as if they had evaporated into thin air. This peculiar event marked the prelude to an experience that would haunt me for years to come. Confusion and curiosity gripped me as I scanned the surroundings, seeking any trace of the vanished squirrels. Suddenly, a thunderous crash erupted from a gully to my right, shattering the stillness. Emerging from the trees was a figure, bipedal, with a towering stature. Initially, I entertained the thought that it might be my father, my hunting companion for the day. Yet, the figure stood too tall, devoid of any recognizable hat or gear. I watched intently, trying to decipher the figure's intentions. It moved with a purpose that seemed human-like, yet distinctly out of place in the wild. Descending the ridge effortlessly, it surveyed the area as if searching for something familiar. Its movements were too fluid for a bear and too deliberate for any other animal I knew. The form, while not entirely human, bore enough resemblance to evoke a chilling realization. This was no ordinary encounter. In a bid to offer help, I called out, expecting a lost hiker or a fellow hunter. The figure's response was unnerving. It crouched, evading my gaze, as though wary of being seen. Undeterred, I called out once more, prompting it to lock eyes with me. Taking a cautious step forward, I tried to bridge the distance, only to witness a swift retreat. The figure dashed away on two legs, moving with a speed and grace that defied conventional explanation. Its effortless ascent over the ridge left me in awe and fear. The realization dawned on me that if this being intended harm, it could easily outrun and overpower me. With a racing heart, I made a hasty retreat, the sound of my own footsteps drowned out by an eerie, guttural roar that echoed through the woods. It was a sound like no other, a primal mix of bear, wolf, and tiger bearing down on me. To this day, the memory of that chilling encounter lingers, haunting my dreams and reminding me of the mysteries that lurk in the depths of the wilderness.